So what can we expect tonight from your weather forecast, you might ask? Well, we are expecting, what are we expecting? Let's take a look. The evening, mostly clear skies this evening, though interestingly enough in the national weather forecast, under the heading evening, it says sunny. So how is it the evening and still be sunny? I think, and then it says night, and under the night, sunny.
Really?
As well.
Okay.
So theoretically, the sun.
Well, I was going to argue on their behalf for evening, but I don't know what I can say in their defense for night.
The evening is rather broad, right? But at nighttime, you'd expect darkness, but no moon, according to the weather service.
There's one thing.
The sun will be out.
There's one good thing about having the sun out at night, Austin. You don't need any lights.
That's true. That's true. Good point. So if you're out tonight and the sun happens to be up, don't be surprised. This is exactly what the National Weather Service has predicted. Meanwhile, temperatures expected to reach a low of 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds will be out of the north to northeast at 5 knots or less. Sea state will be smooth with wave heights of fewer than 2 feet. You just can't make this stuff up if you tried. Currently here on Godfrey Nixon Way, outside's about 88 degrees Fahrenheit, though it feels closer, according to the Weather Service, like 101 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to argue it feels a lot warmer than that. But hey, they're the experts, right? So who am I to disagree with any of them?
Give or take a degree or two.
Give or take a degree or two. 7 inches from the sun, degree or two. You know, it's a little warm. It's a little warm. On the good news category, Ellio, we don't have as much good news to talk about as we normally have in other days. But Connor Childs, I think the Hawaiian/Caymanian native, achieved his dream of swimming from Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, raising vital funds for land conservation. The 22-year-old environmental campaigner took on the impressive challenge on the 14th of August in aid of the National Trust for the Cayman Islands Land Reserve Fund. He was joined for the final part of the swim by the person who inspired him to do it in the first place, Montessori by the Sea teacher Andrea Roach. Child says he hopes the money that was raised for his swim will help protect the Cayman environment amid what he feels is unsustainable development across the islands. Speaking on behalf of the National Trust of the Cayman Islands, Mr. Frank Rolston, Executive Director, praised Child's accomplishments, noting that he sets an inspiring example for others on how to raise awareness about important issues and take action towards solving them. The Trust deeply appreciates his generous fundraising efforts and his dedication to promoting the importance of preserving our natural heritage across all 3 islands, Mr. Rolston stated. And certainly...
Who's Mr. Rolston?
Frank Rolston. He's the executive director of the National Trust for the Cayman Islands. And if I'm not mistaken, he's brother of the ombudsman, I do believe.
Well, Sharon?
Yes, Sharon Rolston as well. But Frank has been with the National Trust for many, many a moon or a sunshine, depending on, if it's like night to night. But certainly we want to, again, tip our hat, if we were wearing one, to Connor Childs and his swim team, the boat that kept him company, and, of course, off the menu for some of the pelagic sea animals that might be out there. Certainly swimming for a cause takes on a brand new meaning with Connor Childs, and not bad for a 22-year-old. So you got to give him props. Well done.
I wonder why that is. Wasn't there a lady that was on top of a plane or something doing something else for either for the environment or for animals?
I can't say that I recall.
Yeah, it was in the paper a couple of months ago. It was
on top of a plane.
Yeah, I think you and I discussed it because it was actually on the front page or something.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, and either way, now we have someone swimming across the Bogue or something.
To charity, Cayman Islands. Let's do a very general Google search.
Yeah, check it out.
Pink Ladies distribute charitable donations. 100 women in just 100 women do the breast cancer. Nothing jumps off the pages on that.
Nothing jumps off the plane.
No, nothing jumps off the plane, quite literally.
It was something about someone on top of a plane or some nonsense.
Okay, well, to the listening audience, if you remember this event, because I always say the single greatest asset available to us in those moments where we draw a bit of a blank, even if we did talk about it ourselves, but it's still drawing a blank. I, chalk that up as old age. But certainly to the listening audience, if you are familiar or you remember somebody else who may have been, quote unquote,
but I'm curious,
on top of a plane for charity
what do you think of that?
for the Cayman Islands, we would love to hear from you. 745-2626 is the number. We'd love to hear from you. As my colleague racks his brain and tries to remember. I do know how you feel, though. I hate it when you have a memory sort of on the tip of your tongue, but you just cannot drag it down. It's like I felt that when we were talking about football and I couldn't find the word for the two opposing gang members playing on opposing teams.
The logwood and the first reel.
Yeah, solidarity was the word I was looking for, but I got that. It came to me 24 hours late, mind you.
In fairness, and to be honest, I'm not quite in that position, although I feel your pain. I mean, it's just that I don't remember the specifics, and quite frankly, I'm not really even trying to remember it, but I know that there was something about some lady that was, doing something risk-taking.
Right.
To raise money. And I remember it got really kind of front page coverage in the Compass. And I'm just curious, what do we think about that? What do we think about taking these risks, supposedly to draw public attention to some issue?
Well, I don't know.
And how far do we go with that?
I don't know. It's a very good question. It certainly is interesting. And maybe the risks are part of the draw.
Well, I would imagine that must be the draw.
Yes.
It's like, I have to swim among, sharks or something.
Yeah.
To raise money.
Yeah. That's the whole idea, the whole draw behind it. Give me money. I might not survive the swim, but I had good intentions. So in the process, give me money and I'll give it all to the National Trust. And should I become fish food? Well, I signed the waiver. It's all good. Nobody's fault but my own. I don't know. I don't know. Rita Estevanovich, I'm searching. Miss Universe, I'm searching. I'm going all the way back to July. Woman sues. That's not a charity. Charity gives professional outfits for work experience. Let's keep going. Nope, nearly 83%. Oh, nearly 83% satisfied in life in the Cayman Islands. Arguably, it's only 83% of foreigners think it's paradise. Everybody else, well, they have a different word for it. What else? Privy Council, public transport, more affordable homes. Nope, I am not seeing it. Now I'm in June, and I don't see anything. 5K walk for raise cash for families in need.
We've been here since February, buddy.
No ladies hanging off planes and doing it for charity. Oh, hang on. Wait. Oh, whoa. Wait. June 19th. I found it on my favorite Cayman Independent. The co-founder of a Cayman animal charity carried out her first ever wing walk. That's walking on the wing of a plane at the age of 82. Sarah Hill, who set up the Cayman Islands Humane Society in the 70s, took on the daring feat in Sussex, England, where she now lives. The Brit was raising money for an animal charity near her home. I can't even pronounce it. She describes Saturday's wing walk on top of a vintage American Stearman biplane as absolutely amazing. 82 years old, defying death, walking out on a wing on a plane as absolutely amazing. And despite being an octogenarian, the pensioner did not choose the gentle option. So there you go. So there was, in fact, someone, to your point, walking on a wing, doing something for charity. It wasn't necessarily for Cayman,
but it was in our papers.
In Cayman, and it was on. Well, I found it on the pages of the Cayman Independent. So there you go. You won't have to, have that issue burning in your skull, trying to figure out what was it that I saw, and where did I read it. There you have it. So bravo to Miss Sarah Hill, 82 years old, and her depth-defying act of charity on behalf of saving animals.
So now we've confirmed that I'm not losing my mind.
You're not.
My question is, what do you think about that? What is it with, an 80-year-old flying on the top or walking on top of a wing, and a 22-year-old swimming, in the dark over the bogue somewhere, just like sharks, wondering, is this fish food or is this just a joke?
I think to the original point, the more death-defying it is, the larger the crowd draw, and therefore the more money, presumably.
But is that required?
Well, I don't think it's required, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It might hurt them, but it won't hurt the charity they're raising money for.
And then what happens if the person, falls from the plane? Like, we give more money or something?
Well, probably somebody would. They feel very guilty and go, oh, my God, to his family. And by the way, here's another million too for the charity, because he really paid the ultimate price in his efforts. Then he gets a plaque, maybe a statue. I don't know. But to your point, is it necessary? Probably not.
We're really working our way back to the Coliseum pretty quickly, I think.
Now that would be a fun fundraiser.
Yeah.
Come out and support, children in need by watching men and women thrown to the lions. Who will survive?
For charity, but your money goes to good charity. Hey, don't worry, it's all for good charity.
It's all meant for good fun, good, clean adult fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think the world's losing. I think we're losing our minds.
Oh my God! I need a bit of humor.
What would you say to me if I said, Austin, I don't know. I don't know
what. Be mauled by tigers. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna go and walk on top of
you need professional.
I'm gonna walk on top of the plane. You would have to say something's wrong with me.
You okay? You running a fever? Did you get a bad medical diagnosis? Are you trying to cut it off of the path? Go out on your own terms? I don't know. Yeah, no, again, one would question what is the motivation. But undoubtedly, the more death-defying it is.
But why is it required? Why is it required? Like, why can't you just sit down, have a logical discussion, and everybody sit and say, hey, that makes pretty good damn sense. You know what? I think I'm going to go with that. Here's $10.
Well, again, explain it to the folks who seek to climb mountaintops like Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest, walk on wings of planes.
I just genuinely want to know.
In the dark water of the Caribbean Sea. Again, I don't know. It's just a logical question.
And then,
or an illogical action.
And then what are you doing there? What do you have to have an insurance? No, I'm serious.
Who needs insurance? It's more fun without it. I don't know.
Do you have to have insurance to do that?
Sign an indemnity.
I mean, surely some insurance company is going to say, well, you kind of just asking to die. I'm not sure if I want to insure you. I mean, it must be a pretty, I don't know. Maybe someone has the details on this. Share it with me.
Well,
I'm curious.
Questions I never asked myself, but hey, it's worth a question. It's the first question on the table on this Open Mic Monday. 745-2626 is the number. If you've got an answer for my colleague.
I've seen it all.
We are all ears. 50 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock. In the good news category. The Grand Cayman Marriott Resort has been granted permission to restore its storm-battered beach in a project that could serve as a test case for a much wider response to erosion on 7 Mile Beach. Government leaders recently approved the plans, which involve depositing up to 8,000 cubic yards of fresh sand on a stretch of shoreline just in front of the hotel and 2 neighboring properties at a cabinet meeting on the 6th of August. The proposal includes placing 2 135-foot low-profile rock groins on the shoreline to help prevent the sand from being swept away in future storms. Now, despite citing potential aesthetic concerns around the use of rock structures on the beach, the Department of Environment recommended the project be approved in an advice paper to Cabinet that highlighted increasing urgency around the loss of prime beachfront. Officials caution that a much wider replenishment project will still be likely and would be needed to address worsening erosion across a mile-long stretch of beach at the southern end of 7 Mile. This has the potential to lead to irreversible loss of one of the Cayman Islands' most valuable natural assets, the report cautions. Now, again, I'm no environmentalist, but we have been talking about this issue of beach erosion for some time. And what are some of the common denominators behind the massive loss of beach? Let's compare it for a moment, because you have beach erosion from as far back as, say, the 7 Mile Beach, public beach, where there are no physical structures on the beach line, save, of course, the old Calicos, now Bonnie Moon. But that is much, much further past the shoreline. So you've got beach erosion there, but you go to the beach today, what nature takes away, it brings back as part of an annual cycle. But then you compare, say, Royal Palms, Cayman Reef Resort, and the Marriott Beach Resort, all of which have concrete structures almost, I don't know, a spit away from the high water mark. And it is those concrete solid structures, when met by wave action, that arguably cause the widening and, I dare say, worsening beach erosion situation. So in my mind, we are throwing good sand after bad sand, only to watch that good sand get washed away, but not address the elephant in the room, which is the setbacks. These buildings that are built on the shoreline or close to the high water mark are the reason for the significant beach erosion. And again, if this were a court of law, I would say, Your Honor, I offer up Exhibit A, Coral Reef Resort, Royal Palms, the Marriott Beach Resort. What do they all have in common? They have structures right at the shoreline. As compared to, say, Public Beach, what does that have? No structures at the waterline. And what is removed from Public Beach oftentimes comes back. I was at the Public Beach over the weekend for a bit of a walk, and they have a gorgeous beach, and even more so the further up you go. Take the Kimpton, for example. Likewise, is the Kimpton? Yeah, the Kimpton is past Aura, the Public Beach. Its physical structures don't start until way past the setback line, and they have a gorgeous beach. Now, you turn the corner around Kimpton, you still have what was always a rocky sand area, which, DART wanted to blow up so they can make more beach once upon a time. But thank God the Department of Environment stepped in and said, no, you can't. I don't care how much money you have. No, you can't. But the common denominator here isn't pouring new sand because old sand was lost to erosion. The argument here that nobody wants to face, whether it be, whether you're a bar, whether you're a hotel, whether you're a condominium, is that your structures are too close to the water line and you need to move them back. So, again, despite the Department of Environment and their recommendations that this is a good idea, obviously the places like the Grand Cayman Marriott Beach Resort are thrilled that they can move forward with it, and government arguably accepting the recommendations they've been given, and why wouldn't they? Department of Environment should be the experts. I guess we'll have to wait and see whether or not this effort actually solves the problem, whether the rock groins on the shoreline or the, the reef balls that were placed just offshore will actually have any impact, or as the storms progressively get worse, if more and more beach will still be eroded. And again, the Marriott.
So the question is,
become the Marriott Yacht Club once again.
Let's go with your argument. Let's say that the reason is because the structures are too close, and I'm definitely inclined to believe 100% that is a part of the problem, or a major part of the problem. But let's take it that is indeed a major part of the problem. What is the government supposed to do? Should the government just tell Marriott to listen? You have to come away from the shoreline and maybe give them permission to go up a little bit more? What happens? And why hasn't it happened?
No, I think you're absolutely right. They should say, listen, you want a beach? you got to, sacrifice. You got to lose your existing patio, your existing poolside. We are already allowing, hotels to go upwards of 10 stories. Go up
a little bit.
We'll make an offset. Maybe we'll make a concession if necessary. Or, all of these properties are insured, so they take the loss and their insurance pays for it. Government doesn't have to come out of pocket for anything. Maybe that is the solution. But then again, it was the same government that allowed them to build that close to the shoreline anyway. So I guess to your point, some arbitration, some balance needs to be struck in terms of any deal. But yeah, moving them back really, I think, is the only way to generate sustainable solutions.
And arguably, if it's done correctly, you probably don't really end up with losses in the end. It balances out, or if anything come up ahead.
Quite right. I mean, those are my thoughts. And again, you look at West Bay, anything north or west, depending on how you look at it, a public beach, that, what nature takes away, nature brings back. And this erosion of beach has been an ebb and flow, natural environmental occurrence in the Cayman Islands for years. Arguably, it sits as the primary premise behind why, when we talk about building port infrastructure, whether it be cargo or cruise.
I was going to say, good thing the port. Good. That's one thing I like. They can't blame that one on the port.
You can't blame that one on the court, but it's argument
they would have
that they certainly
if it was built.
If it was built, they would have put it on the port. But that was the primary reason behind building on pylons versus solid structures.
Sure.
So that the current can move naturally as it does annually. So, but again, man keeps trying to come up with solutions that Mother Nature comes up and says, no, you don't. I'm in charge here. But you go ahead, spend your millions of dollars. I'm still coming, and I'm going to take it with me the next time I go. 745-2626. If you got an opinion on the whole beach erosion and what is the long-term solution, we would love to hear from you. But at 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, we have to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by the BBC. But there'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here, exclusively brought to you by Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. President Trump has held out the prospect of U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine if there is a peace settlement with Russia. He's been holding talks with Volodymyr Zelensky and key European leaders in the White House as he presses for an end to the war. President Macron of France stressed the need for a ceasefire while negotiations with Russia continue.
Everybody around this table is in favor of peace. We've worked very hard during the past few years to have a peace which is a robust and long-standing peace. This is why the idea of a trilateral meeting is very important, because this is the only way to fix it. In order to organize such a trilateral meeting, your idea to ask for a truce or a ceasefire, at least to stop the killings, as we discussed, is a necessity.
President Zelensky is under pressure to cede territory as a price for peace, something he's so far refused to accept. The BBC's Vitaly Shevchenko is at the White House with this assessment.
It's obvious at this stage that no specific agreements, at least no agreements that can be announced, have been reached yet. We understand that Donald Trump interrupted the talks and left the room to make a phone call to Vladimir Putin. Those are unconfirmed reports, I have to say. So it's a fluid situation. At this moment in time, all we've had are various statements by officials.
Hungary's foreign minister has condemned Ukrainian attacks on infrastructure in Russia that are disrupting his country's oil supplies. Peter Sciato called the latest attacks, said to have damaged a pumping station serving the Druzhba pipeline, unacceptable and outrageous. He said supplies through the pipeline had been halted. It provides more than half of Hungary's oil. Hamas has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for the partial release of Israeli hostages in 2 batches. The latest proposal was mediated by Egypt and Qatar and is based on one originally put forward by the U.S. earlier this year. Israel has reportedly received Hamas's response but is yet to reply. Emir Nada is in Jerusalem and has more details.
The BBC understands from a Palestinian official familiar with the talks that the proposal is based on a 2-stage framework originally drafted by US envoy Steve Witkoff in June. That plan would see hostages released in 2 batches over 60 days in exchange for Palestinians released from Israeli prisons. During that period, negotiations would begin for a permanent end to the war. It's unclear what Israel's response will be, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said last week he wants to pursue a comprehensive single deal, ruling out one that's based on a partial release of hostages. But he will now be expected to respond to this latest proposal.
This is the world news from the BBC. The U.S. Justice Department says a known drug dealer has admitted supplying the prescription anesthetic ketamine that contributed to the death of the Friends TV star Matthew Perry. Jasveen Sangha, known as the Ketamine Queen, pleaded guilty to 5 federal charges linked to his drowning in a hot tub nearly 2 years ago. Canada's opposition leader Pierre Poilievre is hoping to return to Parliament in a by-election months after his unexpected defeat in the general election. In April, his Conservative Party was beaten by the Liberal Party of the Prime Minister Mark Carney. More from Warren Bull.
Early in 2025, the Conservatives of Pierre Poilievre are rising in opinion polls, and the right-wing supporter of Donald Trump looks set to become Canada's next Prime Minister. But then in March, the increasingly unpopular Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau resigned as Prime Minister, and across the border, Mr. Trump threatened to impose stiff tariffs on Canada. Its new Prime Minister Mark Carney gave a tough response that many Canadians supported, and he led the Liberals to a surprise victory. 4 months on, Mr. Poilievre is hoping to win the far-right district of Battle River Crawford, whose MP stood aside for him, and to lead the opposition inside Parliament.
A court in Tanzania has banned live coverage of the trial of the country's main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, who is accused of treason. The state prosecutor said a ban on any streaming or broadcast was necessary to help protect witnesses. But Mr. Lissu, who denies the charges, said it would allow the court to operate in darkness. The World Health Organization says Nepal has eliminated rubella as a public health problem due to the success of its immunization campaigns and disease surveillance programs. Rubella is particularly serious for pregnant women. That's the latest BBC World News.
The views and opinions opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And the phone lines are open, 745-2626 on this Open Mic Monday. Maybe you have a comment on our previous discussion prior to the break in terms of what do you think is the long-term solution to beach erosion, particularly for places like the Grand Cayman, Marriott, Cayman Reef Resort, and Royal Palms, just to name a few. Do you believe depositing fresh sand on old sand, which was nature's way of taking it away, is the answer? Or do you believe, as perhaps we do, that the setbacks and the building of buildings within close proximity of the shoreline is the real long-term solution that is needed? We want to hear from you. Or if you want to go back to our even further conversation, why is it that people have to perform death-defying acts in order to raise money for good charitable causes? Whether it's climbing Mount Everest, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, or swimming with the sharkies in the bogue between Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, or walking on some airplane wing at the ripe age of 82. Why do people do this to themselves in order to raise money for charity? Inquiring minds like ours want to know. 745-2626 is the number in studios. Or if talking isn't your thing, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp text message, or you can get creative and send us a WhatsApp audio note. Also want to take this opportunity to remind you about our website, www.straighttalk.ky. If for whatever reason you miss any part of our program, whether it be today, this week, or going back to our inception back on the 10th of February, well, you can log on to our website and you can see the full archives by simply letting your fingers scroll down the page. So there you have it. So, Ellio, whilst we're waiting for callers to call up, another topic of interest on Friday, and we talked about it, the National Coalition for Caymanian Government hosted a public event on the streets of Georgetown, specifically Cardinal Avenue, to launch its first 100 days in office report, which they described as it being a period of a strong start to the new administration. While some of the claimed achievements started under the last administration, there is no doubt that in a relatively short space of time, it has rolled out some notable policy moves that could have a tangible impact. Now, these aren't our words. This is somebody else's words. This is a member of the media. But we read it because, well, why not? Although the NCFC has not yet outlined its broader plans in a strategic policy statement, which will now be delivered sometime in October, it has already made some decisive steps, such as banning non-Caymanians from taking marine life. Well, they've suggested it, but this idea has been shot down, arguably by the community in almost every quarter, particularly the Cayman Islands Fishing Association, along with several, I guess, layman members of the community have said, listen.
And that article is saying that they've done it, right?
No, but this article is saying they've done it by taking decisive steps, but they haven't done it. I'm just, sort of dissecting what the article writes. They haven't done this. They've proposed it, and it hasn't gone over like gangbusters. Quite to the contrary. Many of those persons who either fish for sport or fish for a living say that, some controls are needed, but focusing on centering one nationality over the other is not the answer. Then they say taking decisive action to segregate children and adults being treated for mental health issues. Again, not decisive action, not even proactive action, but reactive action. Obviously, they're referring to the case that occurred at the Anthony S. Eden Hospital, formerly the Health Services Authority, where the initial report suggested a rape occurred, but then in the, I guess, the improved version, they stipulated that there was an indecent assault. A male indecently exposed himself to a female patient in the presence of a minor boy. And as a result of that action, the government decided to separate the adults from the children in their mental health facility or departments in the government. So I don't know if I would classify that as decisive.
And using the place up there in East End, right?
And using the place, Point Siena Rehabilitation Center as well. Again, I wouldn't call that decisive. I would call that reactive action. And again, why do I say that? Because you have to remember, a lot of members of the National Coalition for Caymanian Government, that is the new government, were also members of the previous administration that just theoretically got unelected and reelected again. Decisive action would have been taking that action then, not now. So again, I question the terminology of decisive action. The government has also taken action to tackle a looming deficit, such as putting a freeze on some government recruitment and clamping down on general spending. Now, again, I think this one I'm willing to give to the government, but it really hasn't been done as a decisive action, but arguably more out of need. They need to put together a budget. That budget and that strategic policy statement arguably should have come within 3 months of them taking office, but they went to Parliament and said, we can't do it in 3 months. We need more time. So they gave them 6 months. So we have to wait until October until we hear what the government plans are, and B, get the first of their two-year budgets that would be rolled out, and the budget has to be approved before the end of December, according to law.
But did we actually ever hear from the government prior to this that they were putting a freeze on hiring, for example? I never heard that.
No, we didn't. And as a matter of fact, we haven't heard the freeze on government recruitment.
Must have happened after the premier hired 3 other persons.
Well, it must have been. And here's the interesting rub.
Yeah.
The same media house that published this article calling decisive action on the part of the government previously had an article talking about the impact on personnel costs on government and the overall looming deficit. Now, interestingly, this story is up, and the previous story, which I swear I saw it maybe a week and a half ago, is no longer on their page. So I don't know what you want to call that, lobbying up to the current government or playing a game of, well, I said that. I didn't say that. I never said that. But thankfully, there's more than one newspaper in Cayman, and they didn't take it down. So let's talk about putting a freeze on government recruitment. According to reports in the media, the size of the public service, that is the civil service, the government, is creating serious financial constraints on the government and is leading itself, or is one of the leading factors, I should say, in the anticipated deficit that is expected at the end of the year. Personnel costs in terms of projected growth, in terms of new staff, is expected to cost the government some $7 million. Personnel costs in terms of the public service pensions uplift has already cost the government some $11.4 million. And when combined, along with overall personnel costs, the net increase in personnel costs just for their staff is some $28.4 million. That's a big paycheck. Now let's take a look at what the government says is clamping down on general spending, because this is where the spending aspect can only be laid at the feet of the previous PACT/UPM government that we just voted out of office, supposedly, and elected the National Coalition for Caymanian Government, which, again, the whole issue of culpability, the new government can't say, or they can't wash their hands of the previous spending, because the new government was the old government. As we said, on election day, we really didn't have any changes in the makeup of government. We've rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic, but the ship is still going down. But yet we believe certain monikers like enough is enough, and it was them, not me, not today, Bobo, and all a bunch of nonsense. But the spending, and this is coming from the pages of the Cayman Independent. Gotta love that paper. It says, the government's bills for scholarships, welfare, NAU, health care costs, the civil service cost of living allowance, and otherwise transfer payments are all contributing to the end-of-year deficit. The Cayman Islands government spent $35.4 million on transfer payments in the first quarter of 2025. That's January, February, March. That would have been under the PACT/UPM government of old. Now, what is a transfer payment, you might ask? Transfer payments are made by governments to individuals or organizations without receiving goods or services in return. So things like scholarship is a transfer payment. Things like welfare, or I think what they call it now, what's the word? Financial assistance. That's a transfer payment. The cost of indigent care and overseas medical care, that's a transfer payment. So let's look at scholarship. The government spent, again, the previous administration spent $22.5 million on scholarships, despite only budgeting for $10.9 million. So they spent $11.6 million more than they got approval for in their budget spending. On financial assistance, that's welfare, that's NAU, they spent actually $9.3 million versus what was budgeted, $4.5 million.
Oh.
So they spent in excess of, call it almost $5 million, $4.8 million.
100%.
The HSA, again, care of indigents and overseas medical care, the expenditure was $6.6 million more than what was budgeted. Now you add to it the 5% cost of living adjustment to civil servants, which came in December 2024 as part of a special parliamentary meeting just ahead of the general elections. Now, this is something that I can't really put at the feet of this government, but it is an old-fashioned go-to just before the elections. How do you appease and get the single largest voting bloc
on your side?
On your side, and by the way, the single largest voting bloc of Caymanians in this country are civil servants. Well, how you do that is you give them a raise. Imagine that. Now, again, the UPM and PACT government didn't come up with this notion. It's been around for, as we say, donkey's years. And governments of the past, whether they be UDP, PPM, or anything in between, have all used this go-to just before the elections move. So $20 million in December 2024 was spent in cost of living adjustments. But this is the real kicker. So the government spent $10 million in a one-time honorarium. Now, this is where the former Deputy Premier and Minister of Tourism just has to be laid at his feet, because it was his speech in Parliament in December 2024 that proudly proclaimed this honorarium, which also came on the back of the cost of living adjustments. So civil servants received not $20 million, but arguably $30 million in concessionary awards from the previous administration. But the honorarium of $10 million came and was approved in December 2024 during a special meeting of Parliament, where the then Deputy Premier and Minister of Tourism said a one-time honorarium payment of $2,000 to each civil service employee as a token of appreciation for the work they achieved throughout the year. Now, here's the rub. Those efficiencies were described as including areas in reduced personnel costs. So on the one hand, we acknowledge that the civil service saved X amount in personnel costs that the government didn't have to spend. And to reward them, the government spent that money that they saved. So therefore, making the savings itself null and of no value. Again, you can't make this stuff up, folks. It is there in black and white. Log on to the legislativesssembly.ky for a copy of the Hansards or check out the Cayman Independent. It's there.
I only have one point to make on that.
Yes.
Definitely see where you're going with it. The only thing I would say is one was a one-time payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was supposedly to save this on the civil service, which would have been a recurrent savings.
Yeah, the recurrent cost of living adjustment is a recurrent thing. You know, they will sometimes have as many as 2 COLAs in any 4-year government term. And again, this is not unique to the last government, but has been something that previous governments have done. And it is a political move. I don't care what you want to spell it, how you want to spin it, what you want to sprinkle perfume on it to make it smell better. It is a lobbying attempt to get the biggest voting bloc on your side. And not to mention the fact that it helps. The civil servants are the one who go out and actually push the policies of the government. So they're your foot soldiers. They're your staff. It makes sense, like you would in any private business. You want the business to flourish? Keep your staff happy. Keep their morale high, and therefore you get efficiencies, you get movement. And on the private sector side, that usually means profits. On the government side, that usually means their policy agendas are moved forward. And that's all good. But here is the rub. The politicians have a duty of care. They must be good stewards of the public purse. And that is what makes the public sector different than the private sector. The private sector operates for profit. Government does not. The private sector operates on revenue and earnings. The major earnings that the government gains are on services that you and I, the public, buy, like your driver's license exam, like your education, like your hospital fees. All of these things are services that the government provides that we pay for, that revenues are derived from. Your customs duty, which is always a big earner for the government. Again, their taxes. You want a new sofa? You can have it. If you bring it in from wherever, you can have it. But you're going to pay duty on it. Whether you buy that sofa at A.L. Thompson's or whether you buy that sofa at Sears, there is an attachment on duty factored in to the local margins or when you bring it in. It's a tax. It is a service. And that is how government makes its money off of the consumer. And that is the difference. And as part of being good stewards of the public purse, politicians have an obligation to manage those monies carefully, if, for lack of a better word, so that it does not end the year in deficit, but in fact in surplus. But as we said before, when we look back at the previous PAC UPM government, the rudderless government that it was, at least 3 different changes. They had 19 members, well, call it 13, 14 on the majority side. Everybody had a wish list, and everybody had their wish list fulfilled.
I'm curious.
And that is unsustainable.
I'm curious, do you know the number? You talked about the amount of a reduction in civil servants. And as a result of that, they were given an honorarium or something, right? What does it mention the number of civil service that was reduced and how much you'd be saving annually?
No. Well, the two are different. The projected growth deals with what the civil service. This is why I was looking for the article that was written by initially that disappeared. Because the article, as I remembered, as I read it, did actually include a projected growth in terms of new staff to be added to the civil service. But then that article just disappeared. Now, I'm sure it exists in other media houses, but I haven't been able to find it just yet. But the regarding personnel, it doesn't state how many new bodies the civil service planned to bring on, but they just said it would have cost $7 million. On the honorarium side,
I just really need to understand this.
Yes,
they were awarding because they were not going to hire those persons. I'm getting that they weren't going. In other words, the civil service was able to reduce the amount of people that were coming in.
Yes, well,
and that action resulted, let's say, in not having to hire another 200 people or whatever.
Well, exactly.
And as a result of that, you get a $2,000 bonus.
Right. You're absolutely right. Good point. Thank you very much for pointing that out, because the honorarium was based on one-time payment for reducing personnel costs.
Which would be a recurrent saving.
A recurrent saving.
So we don't know what that number is.
We don't know what that number is. But if we take at face value these two statements and accept them as being true, I mean, they were written in the media. I'm sure they must be the truth. But then again, they could be wrong, but we'll accept them for the truth.
Yeah, for now at least.
We see projected growth in personnel, new staff, would have cost $7 million. The award, given in the form of an honorarium one time, was $10 million.
Right.
So we eliminated the savings of $7 million and tacked on a further $3 million in overages, which really continued along a trend that the previous administration were following, arguably, from day one.
Yeah. So if I understand that, then potentially you're saying that the civil service would have taken certain action that would have resulted in $7 million per annum in a recurrent savings, because this is $7 million. Unless somebody comes along and changes that, it should have saved $7 million a year. And at $10 million, it means it would have been recouped, say arguably within a year and a half. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your point. You know, and when you talk about the private sector, I mean, I remember getting all of the supposed Christmas bonuses and all that sort of stuff when you work in the private sector. And to your point, it's profit driven. If you can get out there and increase all the charges in the consulting world, as an example, I can speak to, then you know you got more fees, and therefore everybody looks good. What has happened on top of it, insofar as the profits for the year, that helps to determine the size of the bonus. If we are correct that, and without a doubt, let's be clear, I'm in complete agreement with you in relation to, typical civil servants have always gotten some kind of a little COLA or something in order to keep that group on their side. But overall, for now, it would definitely seem that in the long run, you would have actually got more savings than you actually expended. And we'll talk about it more when we come back.
All right. It's 29 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, but keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk coming up next.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
Hello, pet parents. We're K-Man Vets, K-Man's most advanced veterinary clinic providing quality care and services. We are committed to being your pet's advocate and friend, offering a lifetime of care. From vaccinations and wellness checks to more advanced surgical procedures, complicated medical concerns, and emergency care on demand. For more information about us or to get in touch, please visit kmanvets.com. K-Man Vets, where compassion meets excellence.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, Marty!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
K-Man, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. At 33 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock is the time in studios, and the phone lines are open. 745-2626 is the number. And now the topics that you have to choose from are increased from 2 to 3.
So I do have something more to say about that if I get clarity, because
sure.
On one hand, you're saying that the previous administration shuffled the deck somewhere between one of the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been have caused how can I put it, a cessation in the hiring of civil servants, right? Therefore, no increase in the number, and we talk about potentially much the tune of 7 million. But if I jump forward to today, aren't you saying that the present government is talking about getting credit for freezing the hires, which that would have started from the previous administration?
Yes, correct. That would have started from the beginning.
So again,
I think that's the aspect of the article that the news media were correct, suggesting that some of the things that the government are claiming, this is the new coalition for Caymanian government in their first 100 days, as successes for them, are in fact, to your point, and very good observation, that they did in fact start under the previous organization. But again, if there's any saving grace, and perhaps this is where the confusion is, that the new government was the old government. So theoretically, they're not lying. I did that. I just did that then.
Well, I was going to say they're arguably entitled to do that as long as they balance the budget, because then if you're going to talk about the good, then you have to take credit for the bad too.
Yes.
But yeah, I think reasonably, I mean, if somebody can say, hey, everybody, because let's understand it, the civil service structure is a kind of a weird one. I remember reaching a high position in the civil service, and you get paid, your salary was increased. I don't know if it's changed, but I doubt it. But your salary was increased based on the fact of how many persons were under you. Probably get a better term, but how many persons work for you, you increase. So in other words, actually incentivizes the office to go ahead and say, I'd rather have 10 people working for me than 5, because your pay is going to increase, which to me, financially, never really made sense. It's not rewarding innovation. It's not rewarding creativity and good fiscal prudence. It's a very old structure that just seems to simply say, if you have greater numbers under you, then you must be more important.
Indeed.
And unless that has changed, you can see how difficult it is to convince someone to not be hiring more people. And I say this, it's kind of a little bit of reverse from what the private sector would be doing, in the sense of saying private sector, or seems to be opposite, private sector saying, I'm going to reward you if you can bring in more money. Well, in the same way, from the civil service perspective, it would arguably make good fiscal sense to reward you if you can save me money.
That's right.
Right? And so, where I don't necessarily believe in spending too much money, I still believe on the balance sheet, depending on how long that freeze can last, assuming it can last for a couple of years, it would still come out in the works in terms of spending $10 million up front, rewarding these people for, doing the right thing, and saving the country money to the tune of $7 million a year. Now, hopefully that can happen for the next 4 or 5 years, which means you would have spent 10 and arguably saved about 35.
Indeed.
But again, interesting when you read it as well, because, as you would have highlighted, now you have the NCFC who is taking credit for that. And in fact, we're now getting the facts and figures that show us that it would actually have happened under the previous administration. And again, you are correct to say, well, they were technically a part of that. And all I'm going to say is, if you're going to take the credit there, then you need to drag the baggage of some of the bad stuff as well.
Absolutely. And I just want to pick up your comments as it relates to civil service efficiencies, and again, separating real efficiencies from simply, the artificial ones. You don't create efficiencies because you've reduced the headcount. That's not necessarily creating efficiencies, not, really, producing something new. You've just reduced numbers, therefore saved yourself a salary, and therefore you've reduced your recurrent expenditure. But one of the areas, and I'm happy to say that this was something that was at least proposed under my administration, 2017 to 2021. Now, I didn't sit in cabinet full time, but over the course of 4 years, I acted as minister and served in cabinet a total of 18 times in 4 years. So there were at least a few occasions in which I knew, I can tell you firsthand, these conversations took place. And one of the things we were proposing was exactly what you just stated, that instead of honorarians, instead of having these otherwise politically motivated cost of living adjustments, we would reward chief officers, deputy chief officers, supervisors, and managers for creating real efficiency through innovation. So if we can shorten what was otherwise previously a lengthy work process, whether it be through the introduction of technology, whether it be through the introduction of certain efficiencies, not necessarily reducing headcount, staff, or people, but making the processes themselves more efficient and thereby producing more tangible, long-term, sustainable cost reductions, then those savings should be passed on in the form of wage increases to the people who made it happen.
Or at least bonuses.
Or at least bonuses. But certainly we thought that was the most tangible way to do it. But we also recognize that politicians do not dictate the civil service. That's in the realm of the governor, the realm of the deputy governor. So all we could really do was make a suggestion to the civil service that they somehow adopt it. Now, again, I say that I was present in the room when these conversations were first being proposed, but I was not present in the room every time cabinet was held, so I cannot tell you whether or not it was accepted by the civil service or perhaps delayed and accepted now. So therefore, I won't claim it on the laundry list of accomplishments, which I do believe we did accomplish under my administration, but I will say it was proposed before. And I would just simply add to that by saying that a lot of these government, otherwise decisive actions that some would call them, are not new ideas. A lot of cases, they're carry forward ideas. which is a good thing because let's face it,
continuity can be very good. Yep.
Continuity is hugely important. And one thing that I think any government will acknowledge, yours, mine, those in the past, you never achieve all of the things you set out to achieve within your 4-year window. And there are a lot of reasons for that. You know, in our case, a pandemic stepped in and, threw a monkey wrench in our plans for the better part of 2 years. Nobody could have predicted that. Other times, a hurricane, acts of nature or acts of God come in and put a kibosh on your plans. I go back to Hurricane Ivan and the challenges it presented to the then government of its day. Before that, 9/11, which also happened the same year that Hurricane Ivan did. So it was a double whammy. It impacted tourism as well as, of course, infrastructure. So there are a number of reasons why previous governments, don't have their plans achieved. But it is encouraging to see that regardless of a new government, new color, new name, that a good idea is still a good idea. A good idea stands on its own merit, and it doesn't matter who introduces it, but that it eventually gets introduced. And this is where I'm going to give some props to the National Coalition for Caymanian Government. Whilst I do not believe any of the things that were mentioned previously in our discussions amount to decisive actions taken by them, I will say, and this is something that they haven't achieved yet, but they promise to achieve, and if they do achieve it, I think it will be worth its weight in gold because it will also represent significant cost savings. Speaking about the NCFC's initial achievements, Premier Andre Ebanks said in his message at the beginning of the report that the administration was also modernizing how government plans and reports on public spending. We're making the budget process clearer, more efficient, and focused on outcomes, he added. And I think you'll admit this, you'll remember the budget, and you'll remember those 2 or 4 books, novels. You get your budget, you get your plans and estimates, you get your financial statements.
At least 3 of them I can remember.
So they're huge bundles. The amount of trees alone that are murdered to produce the government's annual budget, which nobody reads. You can go to Parliament today, and underneath the table, there are books from previous administrations that make up that budget, that the previous MP was there, and that's where he stored it, and he never looked back, or she never looked back. If this government can reduce, number one, the mountain of paperwork it takes to produce the budget, if number 2, the budgets can be more transparent and represent real-world expenditure as opposed to just put enough in the budget so that we can pass the budget, make it look good, because if we need more money, we can go back to that trough as many times as we want in supplementary expenditure, but it doesn't show up on the budget. So it's sort of an off-the-books budgeting or accounting function, but it doesn't change the fact it is still spent from the public purse. It's just a question, do you tell the public this is how much this apple really costs? Or do you say to them, it only costs half that much. Look how good a job we're doing for you. It's political sleight of hand. And to produce it more on real outcomes as opposed to projections, if the government can pull this rabbit out of this particular hat, it would have, I believe, significant cost savings in terms of how much money we spend on producing the budget, but also the amount of time we spend debating and trying to get a few inches forward in terms of moving the needles, whether they relate to healthcare, whether they relate to financial costs, whether they relate to road building, school building, and the like. If government can do that and then can achieve that, that would be a feather in their cap. But like everything else, all of it is just talk. And the proof is in the doing. And so far, as you oftentimes state, that government and the business of government in the Cayman Islands arguably won't begin until December or January 2026.
Yeah, well, in relation to the budget books, I mean, they were voluminous. There's no doubt about that, and I'm pretty sure a couple of trees died in order for us to see the papers, see the budget. But I remember there was resistance to that as well, because we were also asking, well, why don't we go ahead and allow us to be able to deal with this electronically for example, and be able to view your laptop. And I know that tradition was one of the things that was thrown in our face as it relates to the parliament, of having laptops on your desk. And I say that because I think it's important for people to understand that the legacies that you carry on, some of them are good, but some of them are bad. The public complaint, for example, with politicians being on their cell phones. Again, this was one of the arguments that was raised. Well, it'd be the same thing if you're on your laptop. But to your point, you would definitely be saving a very large amount of money. And the unfortunate reality is that many of the politicians don't necessarily read through all of that. Quite finally, I did want to say on the innovations part.
Just a quick correction, going back to something that I said earlier on. I think I incorrectly stated, and obviously the viewer or the listener caught me. 9/11 and Hurricane Ivan didn't happen the same year. 9/11 took place, was it 2001? And Hurricane Ivan took place in 2004. So two separate events, 3 years apart. Thank you for catching that one. I can't say that I get it right all of the time. But yes, I just wanted to make that observation.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Doesn't diminish the point of my argument, though, that both Hurricane Ivan and 9/11 were unplanned occurrences that had impact on the government administration that was in office at the time that they could not have planned for, but certainly put a monkey wrench in their own intentions as well, as it has in previous administrations gone back from time immemorial.
Yeah.
We're making a statement.
Yeah, on the innovations part, I mean, I remember, well, you know that I was dealing with e-government when I was there.
Yes.
And I don't see the real sort of, economic incentives that take place to try to be able to get those innovations. I remember taking a trip to Panama, and they actually had legislation. They had what they call a Department of Innovations. And I wanted to be able to do something similar like that with e-government, because to me, you need to have a department that is, and trust me, I take talking about departments lightly, because unfortunately in the government sphere, that ends up going from 2 people to 25 very quick, and you're just increasing it. But and this might be something even with oversight from the Auditor General's office, but you need a department that is specifically looking at all of the government departments and seeing ways that you can make those departments more efficient, more effective, and at the same time being able to put the requisite rewards in place, because those rewards are going to be economic incentives for people to change. And when you have a system like the government, those changes don't come necessarily quickly. And again, I would like to know if it has changed in relation to the employee situation, where government, the head of departments, HODs, they used to call them, whether they're still getting paid larger amounts of money simply because you have a greater amount of staff.
We do have an audio note, and just looking at the time in which it was received, which would have been just at the 5 o'clock break, we were on the news. I'm going to suspect, but not knowing this, but I'm going to suspect the comment had to do with a previous discussion, maybe beach erosion. I don't know, but let's have a listen.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, interesting subject here on, with that beach erosion. I don't see why government should have to tell them anything at all. That's their property. They paid for it. They built what they had one bill on it, according to what engineers told them to build and all and everything. Government only did the setbacks. Government never designed the building or anything. At the time those buildings were being done, that was the model that everybody was following. And government never said, well, it's okay to build. Government said, if you want to build that close to the shoreline, go ahead. That's your problem. But they never take it like that. You see, now they're not taking it that way. So I don't see why government should have to intervene in anything at all. Just leave them alone. If they want water to come in the lobby, or take with the ground floor and take with the building or the building that the structure that is there on the beach, that's at the owners of that's at the risk at the owners of the property. That's their problem. Let them get a suit and about to come there come there to spend the night or anything and a wave take out the whole place or the whole place collapse. They go there at their own risk. So government shouldn't have nothing to do with them. Just leave them alone. That's their property. They do anything. They let them do what they want to do. Government just don't intervene into it. Just don't intervene into it. Don't give. You're not gonna give them no concessions or anything to build. If they want, keep it up there. Let them keep it up there. Mother Nature can do what she gotta do. When she ready to take it down, she can take it down. So that way, then they'll respect. So why is government cradling and catering to these hotel for that make millions and billions of dollars each year? That ain't good to the Caymanian people. That money, what is spending on the sand, that should go to help the people of the country. That's what I should have did. They're gonna spend that for that to be washed away again. So if I were government, I would just leave them alone. Don't have nothing to say to them. Just leave them alone. Let Mother Nature do what she want to do with them. And government not gonna get into that at all. Government never tell them to build it. Government say if I don't want to build on the beach, say the beach down to go ahead and build on it. That's it. It was simple as that. So they built the hotel at their own risk. So now they want government to bail them out for what? No man.
Something don't smell right. You know what? The caller makes an arguable, if not enviable case. Why should the government have to make concessions? Why should the government have to roll out the solution when we believe, and again, maybe we're wrong, but so far I haven't heard it, the reason for erosion along the earlier part of 7 Mile Beach particularly has to do with the amount of buildings that are encroaching close to the shoreline. And again, the Royal Palms and what is that one right next to it that the former Speaker of the House arguably had a stake in. I never remember the name of it.
The Coral something?
Yeah, Coral Beach Resort, exactly. That one literally has also transformed into a yacht club similar to the Grand Cayman Marriott Beach Resort because they built structures right on the shoreline. And again, we use the example of whether it be Royal Palms, whether it be Coral Beach Resort, whether it be Coral Reef Resort, whether it be the Grand Cayman Marriott, all along that stretch of 7 Mile Beach, you have a disappearing and albeit still gone beach. But on public beach, you also have beach erosion, but the difference there is the setbacks are significant and there is more beach. Sometimes it's gone, other times nature returns it. But the caller taking the position, listen, we approved your building permits. We didn't tell you where to build. We didn't tell you how to build. We didn't tell you how close to build. You did that, and you made money off of it. Now, why should we have to bail you out? I think it's an arguable case, but the government, through the public money, because again, government don't make profits. Government's money are made off of the backs of you and I. We, the public, paid to produce 8,000 cubic yards of sand in front of the Grand Cayman Marriott Beach, arguably for Mother Nature to take it away anyway.
Well, let me say, first of all, I mean, I share his frustration, but I would like to hope that some of that is a bit tongue-in-cheek, because clearly the government, which is, again, the royal we, I think is very important to understand. Government is a collection of us, and normally what you have in business is you have two individuals, at least two or more, and they see an opportunity where they can make money. And then there's always this area, this gray area, where there's either no opportunity to really make money, or one that neither one sees that the other one should possess that power because it gives them an unfair advantage. This is where the government comes in. So in other words, there was no profit in policing. There was no profit in the fire, and there's no profit in a myriad of different things, at least in the past, as well as no one wanted to see it in the other one's hands because it would give them an unfair advantage. So they kept the money side, and the royal we took control of all the things that nobody wanted to have to contend with. Well, amongst other things, we are the ones, the royal we, the government, are the ones who go ahead and approve whether you can build a hotel on the beach or not. And I think most politicians today would say that they probably made an error for allowing persons to build on the beach. And if the Marriott, for example, to use them, if they were going to, or any one of them, if they were going to build something too close that was going to be dangerous for the beach, and the government, the royal we, want to protect the national treasure that we call 7 Mile Beach, not just because it was ranked at one point in time the best beach in the world, but simply because it's for our people. It's a national treasure, and we want to protect it. And we can't let the Marriott or we can't let any hotel just simply go down there and destroy the beach and just say it's their problem. No, it's our problem. This is a royal we problem, which is why at the end of the day we have to protect it. So even if we want the Marriott or the other hotel gone, we still wanted that our children, our great-grandchildren, whatever, can go on this national treasure and enjoy it. And so it was incumbent on the respective governments to get up and say, hey, you're building too close. And if they build too close, then put the proper fines in place and let them reverse it. So either somebody approved it without looking at it in a very circumspect way and making a really good decision, or it wasn't approved. Which one of them, I don't know. But even if it wasn't approved, somebody should have made a decision long ago to fine them and to make them reverse what they've done. And this is where I say the position is, let's take the Marriott. And sorry to pick on them, but it's not just them. But if the Marriott has built the pool too close and they did it without government approval, then you have a clear problem. The government needs to enforce and say you were never approved on this and take the necessary action. If the government was the one who authorized it, then again, government has the ability and the right to be able to get up and say, hey, you know what, we did approve this, but this is clearly a problem. Hindsight 2020. You need to now move it, and here's what we can do for you. We might allow you to go upstairs, as I've said earlier on. But this is a royal we problem. It is a we problem. Now, I definitely share your concern with not wanting to be getting up and spending taxpayers' money as limited as possible. But let's bear in mind that unless you've had some rogue developers that has went down there and built things the way they wanted to build it and how they wanted to build it, then if that did not occur, then this is a royal we problem for sure, not just in the protection of the national treasure, but in the fact that at the end of the day, the government said it is fine to go ahead and do this.
I think that is a fair assessment, Mr. Solomon, and I will accept it as par for the course and part of the ongoing conversation. Now it's up to you, the listening audience, to, I guess, be the ultimate arbiter. Who makes more sense? What position should the government take? 745-2626 is the number. You want to be a part of the conversation, give us a call. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the news, but there'll be more Straight Talk still to come. So keep it locked to Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. President Trump has given a positive account of his talks with President Zelensky and key European leaders at the White House, saying everyone was happy about the possibility of peace between Russia and Ukraine. Speaking earlier, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said the talks gave her hope.
After 3 years and a half that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed, thanks to you. Thanks also to the stalling in the battlefield, which was achieved with the bravery of Ukrainians and with the unity that we all provided to Ukraine.
In a social media post, President Trump said they had discussed security guarantees for Ukraine to be provided by European countries in coordination with the U.S. Vitaly Shevchenko, the Russia editor for BBC Monitoring, is in Washington.
There will be no point in time when Ukraine will say, well, that's it, we have enough, stop giving us more assistance. When you're dealing with an enemy as big as Russia, Ukraine will need pretty much anything its allies can give to Ukraine. So this, I imagine, is what those leaders are talking about. From their earlier statements, we understand the focus of the talks is on security guarantees as well as a possible trilateral meeting involving Presidents Trump, Zelensky and Putin.
President Trump has since confirmed that he had spoken to Vladimir Putin on the phone to begin arrangements for just such a meeting. Hamas has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for the partial release of Israeli hostages in 2 batches. The latest proposal was mediated by Egypt and Qatar and is based on one originally put forward by the U.S. earlier this year. Israel has yet to reply, but Prime Minister Netanyahu said the Palestinian group was under immense pressure. Emir Nada has more from Jerusalem.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has cabinet colleagues who've said it would be surrender to come to a deal now, and they have called for fighting until Hamas is completely defeated. But if Hamas has indeed softened its negotiating position, then Prime Minister Netanyahu will see that as vindication of his plan, his controversial plan to escalate the war.
Canada's opposition leader Pierre Poilievre is hoping to return to Parliament in a by-election today, months after his unexpected defeat in the general election. In April, he lost his seat as his Conservative Party was comprehensively beaten by the Liberal Party of the incumbent Prime Minister Mark Carney. This is the latest world news from the BBC. The U.S. Justice Department says a known drug dealer has admitted supplying the prescription anesthetic ketamine that contributed to the death of the Friends star Matthew Perry. Jasveen Sangha, known as the Ketamine Queen, pleaded guilty to 5 federal charges linked to his drowning in a hot tub nearly 2 years ago. 3 other people are charged in the case. The military government of Burkina Faso has ordered the expulsion of the United Nations representative in the country. An official statement declared Karol Flor-Smedresniak persona non grata after the UN published a report on children in armed conflict in Burkina Faso. Covering a 2-year period, the study blames jihadists and government soldiers for thousands of cases of reported child killings, sexual violence and abuse. Pingdwendi Gilbert Wedraogo is a government spokesman.
Le gouvernement estime, au regard de tous les graves écarts
The government considers, in view of all the serious discrepancies noted, and in order to preserve and strengthen the important achievements of cooperation between Burkina Faso and the United Nations, that Ms. Karol Flor is no longer a credible interlocutor.
A court in Tanzania has banned live coverage of the trial of the country's main opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who is accused of treason. The state prosecutor said a ban was necessary to help protect witnesses, but Mr. Lissu, who denies the charges, said it would allow the court to operate in darkness. The World Health Organization says Nepal has eliminated rubella as a public health problem due to the success of its immunization campaigns and disease surveillance programs. Rubella is a highly contagious viral infection transmitted through coughs and sneezes. It occurs most often in children and young adults. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on your favorite Bobo 103.1 on your FM dial and broadcasting, or should I say simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. And the time in studios now 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock as we move into our final segment of the evening, giving us, give or take about 23 minutes before we have to wrap it up for this Monday. The phone lines are open at 745-2626. If you got a comment that you want to share with us whilst you're live on air and maybe ask a question or take us down a certain rabbit hole, well, the phone lines are yours. I do see a caller on the line right now. Let's see if we can go to the call as we speak. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's on your mind?
I agree with the person that sent that voice note.
Okay.
I have been here long enough, and I've heard where the older Caymanians has countless of time has told us how the movement of the sand from South Sound down to West Bay occur. And these developers, they know that. They go ahead and they have their engineered something that is presentable to the government, and when they put these stuff down on Mother Nature, start to deal with it now, I don't see where I, as a taxpayer, should be footing the bill to bail these people out. Right. Even looking around at the local buildings, the new developments are actually putting the old traditional properties and buildings in a basin. So when we have a lot of rain, we have the flooding, and it is on us, the taxpayers, the government, who go out of their way to deal with issues that these new developments create. The concession that these property got to go ahead, they should have put that money somewhere to know that there's going to come a time when something like this is going to happen. I do not agree that myself as a taxpayer should be putting the bill to shore up these properties.
All right.
I disagree.
Excellent. Well, we thank you very much for sharing your comments and your viewpoints with us. And I just want to pick up the last point that he made in terms of new development, putting the older development arguably in a basin and thereby causing flooding. It is a planning requirement that if you are a new development building next to an existing development, that no water runoff from your property should flow onto the adjacent properties. And I think the planning regulations, don't get me started on this and don't hold me to it, But the way the wording is in the planning law is that new developers must develop swales, which is basically another word to a moat, that captures any rainfall that falls on their property, ensures that it stays on their property. They're also required to put in adequate drainage so that when it drains away from their property, it does not drain, for example, on the roadway, which of course the public traverses, or onto other people's properties, which otherwise would be the bowl analogy that the caller refers to. But arguably, whether you look at places like Prospect, whether you look at places like Beach Bay, or you go even further down to Cumber Avenue in Bodden Town, you see where a government-stated requirement is arguably every single day ignored. And again, we talk about it 1,000 times, twice on Sundays, is that we are a country of great laws, but we don't enforce a lot of them. And to the caller's point, why should the taxpayer have to, come up with solutions to bail out otherwise developers who, frankly, should have known better?
And again, for clarity, in case I am being misunderstood, I'm not suggesting that we, the taxpayers, should be getting up and spending money either. I'm simply saying that, first of all, there is one or two things that would have occurred. Let me say it slowly. Either somebody came and gave a set of plans and the government approved it, or the person did something that was not approved. If it was not approved, then government, to your point, should have enforced it and said, you've done something, I'm going to fine you, and then you need to take it down.
Right.
That's really what was supposed to happen. Continuing on that scenario, they did something that wasn't approved. Government didn't enforce it. They'll come along later on and say, I guess we'll have to grandfather it in because it's been so long. No. Okay, well then, suck it up. You made the mistake. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. Right? On the other hand, the government approves something and it comes out that wasn't really good advice because you shouldn't have approved it because it was going to be an environmental hazard. If that is the case, I'm simply saying that there's opportunities for government, for example, again, using the Marriott, unfortunate, again, in this case, is to simply say, that's 75 feet there. You need to tear it down. And understand, you can pass legislation in a country once you have the majority to arguably do whatever you want. Donald Trump is moving people out of the United States legally.
Yep.
Okay? You can do the same thing here. The government can go down and say, we're going to move this nationality, that national of the country. You can do the same thing.
Yeah. You're solving the D.C. crime problem by bringing in the National Guard.
Yeah, I mean, you can even pass retroactive legislation, which is not necessarily considered to be a good thing, but that's been done in Cayman as well, at least on one occasion that I can recall. So the situation is that you pass the relevant legislation if necessary that says, hey, you have to knock this down, and here's what I'm going to do for you. I know I'm inconveniencing here because you just tore out 18 rooms and a pool, so I'll let you go up. I don't know. So there's solutions there, and I'm saying, why is that important? Because this is bigger than the Marriott. This is not about the Marriott. I couldn't give a rat's behind about the Marriott. We're talking about our national treasure called the 7 Mile Beach. And quite frankly, somebody should pay the price for even letting people build in it in the first place. But that's already done, water under the bridge. You have to protect the national treasure. And in this particular case, if all it takes is relevant legislation, fine. And here's what I want to say. We call about the beach, and we're adamant about it. And I like that. But then why don't we take that same adamancy when I get up and I talk, for example, about, again, sorry to call a name, the area where Bananas is. And the fact that it's allowing to sit there and look like a derelict vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why we can't take the action then? Because the government has an obligation to enforce this kind of nonsense too.
That's right.
Right? And derelict vehicles on the side of the road.
That's right.
It's no different than talking about the beach until you let it get to a situation where, no, it is a problem. Right?
No enforcement.
Okay, lack of enforcement. And so when we sit here and make arguments about enforcement, that's precisely why we're doing it. Because if you don't make the enforcement issue now, it's going to be a problem. You know what's going to happen? If you don't enforce the whole issue about street vendors and everybody can just go and vend every place, well, I go and put one vendor out, just go and put one vendor out, and at the end of the day, everybody becomes desensitized to it. And whether they have a license or not, we're just like every other Caribbean country with a pile of vending machines all over the place. And that may very well be where some of us wants to go. But if we don't want to go there, then again, the issue is about enforcement.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to say that we have an opportunity to make things good. And in this particular case with the beach, we can, arguably by legislation alone, carry things in the right direction. And let us take preemptive measures to deal with some of the stuff that we're seeing around us right now. The fact that this country is starting to look like I don't even want to say, here's a good one, like a hogsty. Because everywhere you go, you're looking at buildings. And I don't know if anybody's, because am I the only one seeing this?
A pig pen.
This is terrible. You got awnings tear up all over the place. Places aren't painted. There's derelict vehicles parked in public places that you can see it right from the road. Well, somebody needs to enforce it. So again, when we talk about 100 days, I would like to see enforcement in those particular areas.
Absolutely. Somebody writes in on WhatsApp saying, has the Cayman Islands government ever done a return on investment study on all the red tape they impose on themselves trying to prove return on investment? I'm going to say no, it has not happened yet, but certainly in various administrations, none, I think, arguably more, say what you want about the man, but none more than those run or led, rather, by the former McKeever Bush. Bureaucracy and government red tape was the bane of his existence, and he argued against it repeatedly. And certainly to the writers.
Didn't get any love for that.
He didn't get any love for that at all. And arguably, why? It's because McKeever said it? Because it's certainly not a bad idea. Bureaucracy in any form only adds to costs. It only adds to delays. It does not promote efficiencies. In some cases, yes, one can argue bureaucracy is a form of checks and balance. And when you're dealing with, consumers or the people's money versus, say, shareholders' returns, then obviously you need to have your checks and balances, and pretty much that defines government. Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. But bureaucracy in many cases, to the writer of this WhatsApp message, does very much only lead to more costs.
I just wanted to do one other correction with the caller, the person who called in, and not to correct him, but there's a lot of other persons that have been misinformed, and we had the same thing happening when we were talking about cruise tourism. He talked about the sand movement from the south, okay? This is incorrect, and it doesn't matter how old the person is that said it, incorrect is still incorrect. There was a research that was done by a Richard Seymour, funded or carried out by the Department of Environment, which clearly shows that sand movement along the south coast. Dr. Seymour confirmed that the sand generated from marine life, erosion, and algae along Grand Cayman south coast moves southwest towards Sand Key and falls off the drop-off wall. I'm not making this up.
It doesn't go to Northwest Point and come back.
No. And that the sand coming now, North Coast Sand Conveyor System. Sand travels along the North Coast and some of it spills into North Sound. The remainder moves towards Northwest Point, where seasonal northwesterly weather front carries it down into 7 Mile Beach system. And again, this is why we couldn't make a decision in relation to cruise, and we're going to suffer the consequences of it because of all of this misinformation that's sprayed out to the public, and it's just been repeated enough that everybody believes it. There is no sand coming from the south and going up along the beach and filling 7 Mile Beach. That's the nonsense that people are talking about. This is a research done by a Dr. Richard Seymour, conducted by the Department of Environment. Have a research, look it up. The sand that's going on 7 Mile Beach is coming from the northwest.
Okay.
All right?
Out of West Bay.
Out of West Bay.
It doesn't go from Northwest Point to South Sound and back up again.
Yeah, correct.
All right. Well, I thank you for that clarification, and I think on behalf of the speaker or the caller, he too perhaps thanks you for the edification.
And I just want to say, I know that we wanted to, I think we got a voice message that we need to play, but I just want to mention to persons, you want to tune in tomorrow. Is going to be a good discussion talking about cruise pairs. We're going to have Mr. John McKenzie here in the studio tomorrow with us at 5 o'clock. You can't miss it. The gentleman has over 50 years in the maritime industry. He has a lot of experience, and we want to talk about cargo port. We're hearing about the country growing in terms of numbers. This individual has been involved in like I said, in maritime industry for over about 55 years. We want to talk about the port as in the cargo port. For example, the capacity, what we're looking forward to in terms of costs and what can be done, what can't be done. And I'm pretty sure we're going to tease him to talk about cruise and stuff as well, and one or two other items. So I want individuals out there listening, please spread the word. We're going to have Mr. John McKenzie here in the studio at 5 o'clock. It's a discussion you don't want to miss.
Fabulous. I'm excited about that conversation. I will echo my colleagues' sentiments. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, you're not going to want to miss a single minute of Straight Talk here on Bobo FM, so we hope to have many of you tune in. At 21 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, giving us about 9 minutes before we have to wrap it up, we do have an audio note. Let's have a listen.
Good evening, Ellio. Good evening, Austin. Thought I'd chime in as former Minister for Tourism in respect to the conversation about the beach erosion, and hopefully add some context to possibly people's thought process and whether government should assist in any cost to renourish the beach. Naturally, I am to a person who would not believe that it's right to just use the taxpayers' money to have private individuals benefit from it for their beach. But ultimately, as we know, the beachfront is ours up to the watermark, so it's not like it's only theirs, it's for everybody. But more importantly, because that one is a little bit more technical to argue, and some people say, we don't get the beach anyway, and there's a level of truth to that. But from a tourism perspective, there is reason to support a narrative of supporting the beach renourishment from a cost perspective. And let me put it in context like that. The hotel that was mentioned earlier is a beachfront hotel, and that's what it's been always advertised as. And a beachfront hotel, as opposed to an oceanfront hotel, charges different rates. And obviously we all know that the government collects a percentage of the room rate. So not having a beachfront obviously affects the hotel's ability to charge higher rates, which means more income for government, as well as also affects the amount of capacity. And unfortunately, the main hotel that we're speaking about has been affected by this beach erosion, and their numbers have not been able to make up what it normally would do over the years previous. So ultimately, the government is making less money from a tourism perspective. So there's a revenue perspective for us to consider if that hotel does well as the condos, because we do make a revenue on the condo rentals as well. So all those tourism residences across the southern end of the 7 Mile Beach that are being negatively affected, the government is losing money on that because of the loss of beach. Now, there are private residents too, which the government will not make any money off. And I think the most difficult thing to do is for one, to explain the benefit opportunities for the Cayman Islands, but at the same time, if there is a beach renourishment for those who are private resident owners, how do they pay their portion of money to get the nourishment for that area? So there's that delicate balance that the government needs to try to complete in order to get this right. But naturally, the government normally does not look at it simply as, I'm just helping these landowners for their profit. The government will make something out of it too. And the longer that beach is not resolved and by way of restoration, the less revenues we'll make from it from a tourism product perspective. And whether that is something the people will accept is another question, but those are some context to take into consideration when government will decide whether they'll assist by way of cost, by a percentage amount, or otherwise. So I thought I'd put that out there for you, gentlemen. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, we thank you, the Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, former Minister of Tourism and Deputy Premier in the Cayman Islands. We appreciate that explanation in defense of the government. Obviously, Again, when we talk about initiatives that were started under the previous administration and continued by this administration, I'm grateful to the member for defending it and obviously representing what was a position that he took when he had responsibility for tourism. But again, I just think it would have been nice if we heard it from the current Minister of Tourism and also Deputy Premier under the present National Coalition for Caymanian Government. Likewise, it would be nice to know that, in tomorrow's discussion when we talk about cargo port, which obviously will have an impact on tourism, but also have an impact on tourism in terms of our ability to import. We want more hotels. The government says they're focusing on stayover versus cruise, so that means more development in hotels, the need to import more materials to build hotels, and then once built, then is going to need to import even more merchandise and food stock items in order to feed the tourists and, man the restaurants and whatnot. All of these things relevant to cargo port development. Again, it would be nice to get some indication from the current minister responsible in terms of whether they think it's a good idea, bad idea, if it's going to be a pressing priority or otherwise. But whilst we continue to extend invitations to the current administration and their leadership, the conversations still continue. And, we'll talk to an empty chair if we have to.
Again, we prefer not to. I just want to say, Austin, two things. One, as a supplementary to what I said earlier on, I want to highlight, as I talked about government, and when I say government, not necessarily this government, any government, in relation to fixing some of this problem on the beach, I was saying so on the tail end of what you had mentioned, which is the natural replenishment that nature does. And I'm saying that to your point, if you move these things out of the way, then based on that same theory, you should have the natural self-replenishment. So I think it's important to highlight that.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm sure the listeners do as well.
Yeah, I did reach out, by the way, to the Deputy Premier, the Honorable Gary Rutten. I was trying to invite him to come on the program in relation to sitting with Mr. John McKenzie. And I do want to say that, unfortunately, and this is positive because he doesn't seem to be speaking in a way that he's averse to coming on the program. He simply said he wasn't going to be able to make that particular date and did mention that he did have some schedules that has to be going on, I think actually in possible meetings with FCCA, et cetera. And that after he does that he would be happy to sit and chat and have a date set to come on the program.
Well, so 45 seconds remaining. Can you, again, remind the public our guest for tomorrow?
Sure. And so I just want to give him kudos for that. Thank that very much and look forward to having him here in the program at some point in time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please join us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. The program starts at 4:30, but our guest will arrive at 5. Mr. John McKenzie, over 55 years in the maritime industry. We're going to be chatting all about ports, specifically the cargo issue that's facing Cayman. Of course, we're going to squeeze something out of him on the cruise port. Has a tremendous amount of experience. You don't want to miss it tomorrow here at 5 o'clock. Share the good news as well. And with that, how much time do we have, Mr. Harris?
Not enough time. All we have time is to say good night. Thank the listening audience for tuning in.
See you tomorrow.
And encouraging you to tune in tomorrow for more Straight Talk here on Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC World Service. The most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.
At Priced Right, spending less on everyday products is easy.
Spend less on office supplies, tools, and automotive products.
Spend less on groceries, fresh produce, and meat.
Spend less on electronics, TVs, and speakers.
Spend less on home furnishings, beauty products, and apparel.
At Priced Right, we believe you can live better for less.
To start saving, visit us at the Airport Center in Georgetown or at Republic's Plaza in West Bay.
For more info, visit pricedright.ky. Live better for less at Priced Right.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to Saxon.